Hello everyone, this is Hakaym and welcome back to some more World of Warships, and today we are showcasing the Tier 9 French cruiser, the St. Louis. And I have to say, I really do like the St. Louis. It is very similar to the Charles Martel in a lot of ways. But let's quickly take a look at the map. We are playing on Tears of the Desert, playing the absolute most amazing game mode, Epicenter. Yeah. Anyways, we have a Missouri, North Carolina, 2 Tirpitz, and a Magi, Zhao, Moskva, St. Louis, Chapayev, Yugamo, Ognavoy, Loyang on our team. On the enemy team, there is an Iowa, North Carolina, Tirpitz, Bismarck, Minotaur, Hindenburg, St. Louis, Charles Martel, Otago, Kutuzov, Udaloy, and Loyang. Now this battle is going to be interesting. I will have to say, it comes very close at the end, but going back to the ship itself, it's very, like I said, it's very similar to the Charles Martel. If you enjoyed the Charles Martel, you should enjoy the St. Louis. If anything, she's just a slightly improved version of the Charles Martel, more than anything else. Now, as you can see, the friendly destroyers aren't really doing that great of a job. The enemy team has already started capping the center, and they are going to take it, which is unfortunate. Now, I do kind of move out north somewhat to get kind of behind this island, because that's the issue with this game mode. It really does slow down the pace of the battle, because most times everyone's going to be hiding behind these islands, these ring of islands around the center, and they don't really push, and that's the severe unfortunate thing about this game mode. Yes, in like lower tiers it's a little bit more fun per se, but even then it's still sluggish to get the game moving. Now I am taking my time. Tension is on the Bismarck and shots out, and like I said, the HE fire chance on the French cruisers is actually pretty good. Bismarck just landed a few hits here and there. It's not too bad, but we're ready. Hopefully, possibly, we'll get a fire on this Bismarck. And there we see the enemy Iowa. Now here, in just a moment, I'm going to be making a very terrible mistake, probably in just a couple minutes. Now, we do have our friendly Loyang currently combating against the enemy Udaloy, but as you can see, this Bismarck actually used his damage control only on 1 fire, and he's showing a lot of broadside. You can see that he's just took a pretty big hit there, and now we have another fire, so he's going to be sitting on that fire for a while now, and right off the bat, our friendly Amagi actually takes out the Tier 10 Hindenburg, so that's one less high-tier cruiser that's going to be around. Now, I am spotted. There is a enemy Iowa. Now, I have not tested, so I do not know if this will actually prove beneficial, but I do not know how well the bow armor will do. Now, say like the Baltimore and the Des Moines, they like to sit kind of bow in. So I can't really say how well it would do against a Iowa bow end, but fortunately for me, for whatever reason, this Iowa also extinguished his fire after only 1. I don't know what's with the enemy battleships in this match, but they like to extinguish their fires very quickly, which is not the right thing to do. Just to let you know. Now, I am trying to get out of the way, and there we go. Got another fire on this Iowa. That's going to stick for some time. We do have a friendly North Carolina, which I just unfortunately ran into, as well as a friendly Tirpitz, kind of on the side, pushing against this Iowa. But, as you can see, the entire enemy team is actually on the western side of the map. It looks like we attracted the attention of the Bismarck. He's probably a little annoyed at me. Now, this Iowa has 2 fires, so he, in his foolish attempts to negate any fire damage, is gonna have to sit with this. Now, I am pulling away, and I would assume that since he does have a North Carolina and a Tirpitz firing at him, that they will be able to take care of them. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and switch my attention away from this Iowa, for the most part, but he is getting to the extent of my range. Just so everyone is well aware, this version of the St. Louis that I have at this moment in this replay is non-upgraded. And I mean, look at this. This Iowa's at 8.5k health. I would assume that a North Carolina and a Tirpitz would be able to take care of him, so that's why I pulled away. This was mistake number one. I should have just went after this Iowa and I should have killed him myself. That's what I should have done, but instead I'm going to switch my attention trying to help my team because the enemy team's actually doing a really good job. The destroyers are providing smoke screens for the friendly team, as well as they're all kind of pushing together down the western side flank. And yeah, see, I just wish our team is just kind of huddled behind islands. Probably most of them not even in a position to actually open up against anyone. So that is the unfortunate thing there. Now here, I'm gonna switch my attention back to this Iowa. Once again, North Carolina, Tirpitz against a lone Iowa, very low on health. If armor piercing isn't working, use high explosive. Just end this Iowa. Don't wait hoping to get a citadel. High explosive would have ended him very, very quickly. But instead, I have to go in and I have to try to take out this Iowa. Now, I do have my engine boost. There, the Iowa just took a little bit more damage, but now he's using his heal. He's going to repair that fire damage, and since the majority of the damage he was receiving was fire damage, he's able to repair the majority of that fire damage on this one heal. So this Iowa's able to get around 1,300. Yeah, there we go, about 1,300. So he's able to get quite a bit of his health back. And remember, he was at 6k. And now I have to come back in because our friendly battleships just aren't really doing it. Now we have just lost our Moskva to the enemy Atago. Our team is not in a particularly fantastic position. There are at least a group of them kind of in the center there, which is preventing certain amount of ships from actually opening up on them, but as well as they're not able to open up against other type of ships. Now, finally in range, and there we go. Had to make my way all the way back up north, and the friendly North Carolina finally takes him out. Okay, so damage-wise, we're doing pretty well. 69k. We're not done yet by far, but for the first, oh good lord, actually 9 minutes. It's only been 9 minutes, and you can see how slow the battle is going. We've only lost 5 ships total, 2 on the enemy, 3 on the friendly, and no one's really doing anything much else. It's all about jockeying for positioning. We are actually starting to cap the center ring, so this is actually going to help us get a points advantage, and as long as we have this points advantage, we should be fine. So our friendly destroyers are providing smoke screens. I believe we had a Zal being really brave. Fortunately, our destroyers had his back and was able to provide some smoke screen. And now I'm actually going to push up on this northern hand side, try to flank the enemy team, and we get 4 shells on that Lo Yang, so that should have done some amount of damage. It's about 3k, not too bad. The Tago's very low health on the enemy team should go down here in just a moment. Like I said, epicenter, it really slows down the pace of the battle. It really does. It really comes down to positioning and where you're able to get a flanking position, or better yet, who has the better destroyers or the better carriers. That's really what it comes down to. Now, I am spotted, which probably means there is a destroyer around, so I am trying to be careful because I don't want any torpedoes coming in. And there is the enemy Bismarck. I believe this is this the same Bismarck that we opened up prior? I believe so. I think there's only one Bismarck on the enemy team. There is the Lo Yang. Opening up on him. Hope we can get a hit. We do get 1 hit, which is not that big of a deal. But the enemy team is starting to push out. They do have their Minotaur, who's very, very low in health. Their Bismarck's pushing south. And their St. Louis. I will have to give a shout out to that St. Louis because he did a really fantastic job for his team. Because I think if it wasn't for him, they might have... Well, I don't want to spoil anything. I don't want to go into spoil territory. So, pushing up still, I am detected. There is a North Carolina and a Charles Martel sitting behind this island. Now, I am being very, very cautious. I can see that the North Carolina is starting to pull back. And I don't want to come around this corner and possibly come into, well, contact with his very large guns. There's also the enemy Udaloy, as well as the enemy Charles Martel. I do drop torpedoes, hoping to land a few on this North Carolina who is reversing. There we go. Got a decent hit on this Udaloy, but unfortunately we have just lost our friendly Tirpitz and our friendly Zhao. And this Charles Martel is going to be my nemesis for the most part of this last half of the battle. Now, once again, the St. Louis and the Charles Martel are very, very, very similar. I do switch over to AP. The AP, I don't know if it's just me, but against a broadside battleship, not too bad. Not too bad. Almost 10k damage right there. Not too bad overall. Obviously, that attracted the attention of North Carolina. I'm going to go ahead and maneuver out of the way, keep this island between myself and him. But the Charles Martel is going to be my nemesis, as I did point out. Our team is doing something. They are taking out ships. They just took out the enemy Bismarck. But I believe there's a limit on what teammates are actually capable of. Anyways, we are detected by the Charles Martel, and he opens up with HE. I open up with AP, and there is the French rudder going out as normal. Really would have to say, if it did not have the gimmick of the speed boost, I would definitely recommend getting the reduction on steering gears. Well, I would highly recommend it, better yet, because you will almost always see your steering gear getting knocked out. But one beautiful thing about the St. Louis compared to the Charles Martel is that heal. That heal is amazing, keeps you alive for a lot longer. And this Charles Martel is sitting, actually, well, I mean, he's doing a really good job. He is keeping himself kind of bowed in. He's actually reversing. Unfortunately for me, yeah, my aiming's not quite right. Now, we are unfortunately spotted by the North Carolina, and this will allow the enemy Charles Martel to continue opening up on us. North Carolina should go down possibly here in a moment. As far as damage, we're sitting at 109k right now. It just did around 4k against this North Carolina. Charles Martel, or better yet, the Kutuzov. I wonder where that Kutuzov was, actually. Last known location was over there. But we do lose our other destroyer. This North Carolina should go down in a moment. Charles Martel is still opening up on us, and there the North Carolina is finally dead. And I am going to switch my attention over to the Charles Martel. Now, one major thing you need to keep in mind whenever you're playing French cruisers is the majority of their firepower is in the bow section of the ship, and they work the best if they are bow in. Running away is a little bit more difficult because you do have to show off a little bit more broadside just to actually get your guns all to place. Switched over to AP hoping to get a Citadel, but unfortunately I was not able to. And I think it is going to be a good idea to actually pull away. There is way too many ships up here by myself. Don't know if I could handle this all. There is a Kutuzov. There is also the Charles Martel, and I think it would be a better idea to actually regroup with the friendly force, open up with AP against this Kutuzov, and yeah, unfortunately no citadel, which is highly unfortunate. Yep, Charles Martel did drop torpedoes, but they safely went by. No big concern there. So armor piercings just doesn't seem to be doing it for me. I might have to stick with HE, and I don't know why. I've had instances where the AP against say I think it was a Kutuzov that was sitting about 6 or 7 kilometers away, and it's probably due to the fact that the armor piercing was basically too large and the armor is too thin, that it just over penetrated every single time, and so I wasn't able to get a citadel. So I don't know. I kind of want to go test this out now. But anyways, once again, Nemesis, Charles Martel. Dang. Alright. HE it is. Let's see if we can take them out. The teams are even. We do have 3 battleships to their 1, while they have more cruisers, which are definitely spewing out that HE. So once again, I am actually going to pull away. The enemy team has left all the caps. There is the enemy Udaloy, who's 639. Can we please get a kill? We definitely need to get rid of this destroyer as quick as possible. And there we go. Just took out the enemy Udaloy. Very, very nice. We have just lost our Missouri, who was definitely keeping us in that center of the ring. Their enemy Turpitz is not doing that great of a job. No diss to that player, but he is kind of sitting further back. Hasn't really pushed in. Their St. Louis is starting to push out. Obviously, the Missouri is no longer a major threat. Now, we do have a friendly Amagi. Actually, I'm kind of curious how much health he has. He's okay. He's kind of low on health. He has attracted the attention of the enemy Kutuzov, and I have attracted the attention of 3 ships. I have attracted the attention of the Kutuzov, the St. Louis, and the Charles Martel. And let's see, we need to pull away. And once again, I really highly recommend the skill of basically the skill designed to alert you of who's aiming at you. And right there we have both been lit, as well as our rudder was knocked out. So I'm gonna have to try to be careful. We are slightly careening to starboard, and I'm actually gonna have to go silent. So fortunately, none of the enemy ships are actually close enough, able to go silent and kind of wait till my rudder goes by. And unfortunately, we are now spotted, I believe, by the enemy Charles Martel. He is really becoming a nemesis of mine. But got some shots off on the St. Louis. He is now on fire. He's probably going to use his damage control. And I am going to try to get out of here as quick as possible. Now, our friendly Amagi is going to be in a bit of a pickle here in just a moment. And yes, it is high time to get out of here. Charles Martel is actually being really smart. He's keeping quiet. I think he's actually moving towards the center. And yes, right there, he is in the center and is going to start capping there. But we are head in points, and there is about a minute left. This is the only thing I can say as to why we have actually won this match, is due to the fact that we held all 3 of the rings at once and was able to basically accrue all those points in that time. But obviously the enemy has pushed us out. We got 2 fires on this enemy Turpitz, and this fire damage is starting to really rack up. Doing quite nicely. I'm very satisfied with this fire damage, with the fire chance on this St. Louis. The enemy St. Louis is doing a pretty good job getting fires on our friendly North Carolina. And I am going to switch my attention over to this enemy St. Louis. He is probably the more major threat. And there we go. We just earned Wither. Added that to our Confederate. And can we get another kill? Another kill would be super nice. Now the enemy Kutuzov does take out the friendly Amagi. And there we go. Got a fire on the St. Louis. He should go down in just a moment. And there's about 18 seconds left on the timer right now, and there is our second kill, and only 10 seconds left, and we are well ahead in points. And this was a very, very close battle. It was very, very fun, but that's actually it. So our team earned a victory. We received 394,399 silver, 3,538 XP. We earned Confederate and Witherer. We did 165,313 points of damage, 198 shell hits, 2 assisted base capture, 2 kills, and 11 fires. And I'm really starting to like my St. Louis. I really am enjoying it. We are on top of the team with a base XP of 2,246. You can see that we kind of helped carry this match quite a bit, which was actually very beneficial. I will have to give props to the enemy Kutuzov, who actually had 4 kills on his team. And you can see that the top 3 cruisers were basically essentially flamethrowers, slinging down the HE. So high props to all 3 of you. You guys were pretty good. So as far as damage, we did around 18,000 against the St. Louis, around 2,000 against the Udaloy, around 46,000 against the Iowa. 46,000, around 36,000 against the Bismarck, around 22,000 against that Tirpitz, and around 21,000 against the North Carolina. Our high explosive shells did 76,000 points of damage, armor piercing did 25,000, but fires did 63,953 points of damage. Really enjoying the fire chance on the St. Louis. So we are going to go ahead and quickly jump into port and take a look at the stats. I will see you guys there. Alright everyone, welcome back to port, and I have to say, I really do like the St. Louis. As I did point out multiple times, the St. Louis, St. Louis, what am I trying to say, is very similar to the Charles Martel in a lot of ways, but I will have to say she's a improved version of the Charles Martel. Let's go ahead and take a look at the stats. Survivability, you have 38,800 stock. Keep in mind, this is stock. Armor is fairly flimsy, 100 millimeters. Keep in mind, the Neptune technically has thicker armor than you, 102 at the most. St. Louis has 100 millimeters at the very most, and that's at the armor belt and citadel armor. So it's very thin. You can get royally citadeled, royally screwed for that matter. So you do have to keep well in mind of how much armor you have, and as you can see, you do have 100 millimeters here and 45 millimeters here, so you do have 2 different sets of armor protecting that middle section, but it's very thin. So you do have to be well aware of your angling and whatnot. Now the bow, I don't foresee the bow really allowing a lot of ricochets, so I wouldn't really trust angling in against battleships. You could probably do it against other cruisers, but most times he'll just switch over to HE and just burn you to death. So moving on to the guns, once again, the guns are very similar to the Charles Martel. The fact that you only have 3 of them, they are triple turrets, 203 millimeters. Now, the stock version, and this is without upgrades, the reload time is 10 seconds. You don't need to get an upgrade for that. So, with the upgrade module, you can get it down to 8.8 seconds. Turn time on the guns is 26.5 seconds. Max dispersion at 16.7 kilometers is 138 meters. Max HE damage is 2,800 with a 19% fire chance, which I have to say, French cruisers really like their fire chance. Max AP damage is 4,900, and once again, range is 16.7. Now, the velocity on the shells, as you can see, the HE is at 876. The shells don't really have that loftiness that some other cruisers kind of have. They do seem to go to target. You do have to aim a little bit further ahead because they are not as fast as, say, the Donskoy or for the Ibuki for that matter. AP shells do travel at a slower velocity at around 845 meters per second, so you have to even give more lead just to make sure your targets land center where you want them to be. Torpedoes, yeah, there's nothing really extravagant about these torpedoes. They're the exact same that we have been seeing for the past like 3 or 4 tiers. You have 2 triples, 550 millimeters. Reload time is 90 seconds. Max damage is 14,833 with a 9 kilometer range. So they're nothing really extravagant. They're the exact same throughout the tier 7 through 10, I believe. I think, I'm trying to remember. I know there was one tier that had, I think that was a galley, had the only 2 torpedo tubes per side, so that was the odd one. A defense is not too bad. Now, I haven't really seen that much CVs with this cruiser, but do keep in mind you can buff the AA if you go for the captain skills, as well as the additional module, which I'll talk about the additional module in a second. You have 20 millimeters of the Mark IVs. They do an average damage of 72 with a 2 kilometer range. Then you have 12 dual 40 millimeters. They have an average damage of 136 with a 3.5 kilometer range. And then your secondaries, which I didn't even talk about the secondaries. Once again, the secondaries are not that extravagant. Really won't see them. Secondaries will also operate as additional AA. Average damage is 48 with a 5 kilometer range. Secondaries, go ahead and quickly point them out. 4-second reload time, you only have 7. You actually have 7, which is actually really nice. So you do have quite a few compared to previously. They have a 9% fire chance and will do around 1400 damage with a 5.3 kilometer range. So they're somewhat beneficial, but once again, you're going to be kind of sitting further back, being a support cruiser. Now, maneuverability, max speed is 33 knots, turning circle radius is 720, and rudder shift time is 11.4 seconds. The speed, once again, is all right. It's kind of about average. I believe it's a little bit better than the Baltimore's. But with her engine boost, she becomes a completely different ship. She actually becomes very maneuverable. She becomes very, very fast. And you can almost break, I believe you can almost break 40 knots with this ship with the speed flag and the engine boost. So you can get up to around 40 knots. But one major downside is when she turns. And oh boy, when you turn, you lose a lot of speed. So do keep that in mind. The speed on this ship is solely as if you're sailing in a straight line. So do keep in mind, if you do have to turn, you're going to be losing quite a bit of speed, and it's going to take just a moment for you to get back up to speed. Concealment is 11.5, and that is with Captain Skills and Concealment Expert module on it. And it kind of sucks because the Charles Martel actually had a better detectability compared to you, and detectability range by air is 7.1 kilometers. So do keep in mind the Charles Martel can actually outspot you. So keep that in mind whenever you're facing off. As you did see in the battle, he was detecting us, the Charles Martel, while we were not able to detect him. Moving on to the upgrades. Everything is fairly similar. Now, I did go for main battery modification 3. This reduces the reload time but increases the traverse time. So keep that in mind. That's why it drops it down to 8.8 seconds. Now, you could, I guess, technically go for gunfire control system mod 2. This increases your range, but once you get the St. Louis upgraded, your range is 18.3, which is pretty fantastic. And I almost rather have that higher DPM rather than firing at a very long range. And yes, firing at long range will ensure that you're more likely to survive, but I much rather have the higher reload rate than the actual range, because you have pretty decent range at 18.3. Now, another module, another upgrade you can get is the AA Guns Mod 3. This will boost your AA to 25%, the average damage per second of AA mounts. So if you want your cruiser to be a little bit more AA orientated, don't really recommend it, but you can go for this. This will increase your AA defense. Obviously, very, very similar. If this was not here, I would definitely recommend Steering Gears Mod 1 to prevent that steering gear loss, because that's the Achilles heel of the French cruisers. My captain really hasn't changed that much. Still work in progress. I'm really hoping I can get him up to a 19-point captain. I might have to add a few more flags to him, to the ship, just to get him up there, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to get the necessary upgrades or the necessary captain points for him. So it might be a little while, but everything's fairly consistent. I probably will eventually get either basics firing training or advanced firing training. Advanced firing training would be nice, but I think basics firing training increasing the average damage by 20% would be beneficial against enemy airplanes. So that's kind of my look at it. But anyways, this is going to be it for this episode of World of Warships. Thank you guys so much for watching. And if you like what you saw, hit the like and subscribe button. You guys have a great and fantastic day. Zaijian.